Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of Social Media News Live. I am so glad that you are here with us today. This is one I've been excited for a while to have Vincent on. He and I have talked a lot with Messenger, and he's got a great conference, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of things, but his meat and potatoes is community and membership. So I am fascinated about that. I've been in some really, really good ones. They've really helped my business. So with all this AI stuff that's been hitting our feeds, having this community and membership and coming together, I think, is more and more important than ever. So we're going to be talking about that today as we're going along. If you know somebody who's interested in community building and memberships and all that kind of stuff, call them into the conversation down below. Just, mention their name. Even if they can't join us live, we'll make sure to circle back and talk with them. But I'm really excited to have your questions. We're going to try to pull up as many as we can on the screen. So make sure you guys do that. Connor Brown, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm living the dream. Like always, last week I was away from the show because I was on a cruise. I am rested, rejuvenated. Yesterday, I was telling Jeff I got to go to a brand new theme park here in Orlando, Epic Universe, on a preview. It's been a whirlwind couple of weeks, but I'm glad to be back on the show.
Yeah, and Vincent's in your area too. So Vincent, are you a big theme park guy? Are you Universal or Disney? What's your favorite?
Am I going to offend anybody if I say I like them both?
Yeah.
No, you can offend.
Universal
offend
seems
away.
a little. What's that?
Offend away, please.
Well, I love theme parks. I'm new to Florida, right? Relatively new. So we've been to Universal more than Disney since we've been here, and I like it simply because it just seems a little less chaotic.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But love Disney, and I love roller coasters. And here's the thing. I love roller coasters, and I've always been a sports guy. I have 3 boys.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Which you would think would be ideal. My kids hate sports. Hate it. Except for one, my middle son, Nolan. And none of them like roller coasters.
Oh, man.
So we go to the theme park, and I got to go ride by myself, right? Pull one of them on. I'm like, how did this happen? How did this happen that none of them like roller coasters?
It works the opposite way, because I have the amount of sports ability I have is in my pinky, and my son was great, football, basketball, everything. We went to he did everything, and he works for the Dallas Stars now, the hockey team. So, just crazy, but not for me, not for my side, because I can barely walk and chew gum. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and start the show, and I'm going to go ahead and hit go on the podcast machine, and we will get this on the road. Hello, folks. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not.
And I'm Connor Brown, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on what's happening in the world of social media and more.
You ever wonder what it takes to build a community that people can't wait to join? Maybe you're curious about how everyday know-how can grow into a reliable, recurring income. Or maybe you're just ready to transform a simple idea into a thriving membership that lets you work on it from anywhere. If any of that sounds like you, well, you are in the right place. Today, we're excited to welcome Vincent Pellegis. I screwed it up, Vincent. I knew I was going to do that. We're excited to welcome Vincent Puglisi, an expert who's turned passion into membership freedom and helped countless creators do the same. Vince is going to be unpacking his journey, share some proven strategies, and reveal practical tips for creating communities that last. So sit back, clear your schedule, clear your mind, and get ready for this week's episode of Social Media News Live. Vincent, how are you doing today, my friend?
Awesome. Pleasure. Honored to be here.
Yeah, so this is going to be awesome, even though I screwed up his name, and that's why I only say I'll say his only last name once, and we can edit it in post. That's what's going to happen. But Connor Brown, take it away.
Fix it in post. We'll fix it with AI. We're good. If you don't know who Vincent is, you should. Vincent helps those looking to create remote recurring revenue through membership, take their ideas, skills, or passion, and create online income that gives them time and financial freedom. He leads Membership Freedom, a community for those who are looking to build or who are already building memberships, and provides them with a proven roadmap to achieve their membership goals. He is also the host of the Unconference for Entrepreneurs and the author of The Wealth of Connection and Freelance to Freedom. Welcome again to the show, Vincent.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Can't wait. I'm excited for this. Can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, so we've already got some of our friends showing up. Of course, the amazing Jim Fuse. He's watching over on YouTube saying, "Good morning, gentlemen." And we've got my friend Ralph saying, "Good morning, my friend." So you guys ask your questions because we're going to jump into this because I think community is an untapped thing that a lot of entrepreneurs don't do. So we're going to start out just kind of with, rolling really fast. And I want to talk, Vincent, about this idea that you have content first to connection first. Like you've kind of flipped the script on that. And in your book, The Wealth of Connection, you say that they come for the content, but they stay for the community. So how does that kind of maxim shape the way you advise founders to design memberships and experiences like for this year, 2025?
Yeah, it's interesting because I say it all the time, content leads to connection, connection leads to content. When those come together, you have an offer that you can create. And so often, especially in this day and age now with AI, the amount of content that's being put out is enormous. People aren't responding the same way, but connection, people just kind of, they're not getting it. They're not getting personal connection with one another. So I advise all the time in terms of building a network. That's what my book is about, The Wealth of Connection. It's all about how you can connect and make these relationships. When you can take these connections and you can build relationships that way, and you can create content from what they're struggling with, what they want, what they desire, and then that content leads to more connection, and they go back and forth. It's so interesting how somebody in our community actually they pulled up in ChatGPT, and I'm not an AI guy, right? At least at this point. I love creating my own content. I love struggling through writing the books. I like that. I write all my own posts. They said, what are two things to ChatGPT that you can't replace right now? And the two things ChatGPT said back to them was community and live events. So that's pretty interesting because that's kind of the world we've been in. And we've always, if we've done something good, we've always stayed ahead of what was coming next. Even when we were in the photography world, which I was in for 20 something years.
Wow.
We saw the writing on the wall, even in terms of newspapers of 2004. That's what we were in. Like, this is not progressing well. We started our own business at that point. Every step along the line, you've got to be able to look ahead and be like, where is it going to? And when you see this in terms of AI and content and in terms of faceless brands and all that type of stuff, that's all well and good. But as you develop a personal brand, personal connections, real relationships, that's how our communities build. Not only how they build, but how they stay together and then grow. Because when they find people that are actually like-minded and they connect with one another and they're really personal, they're telling their friends about it. Whereas everybody else is trying to use all these systems to get more people to stay involved, but there's no connection there. The connection is what's missing and is going to become more and more valuable as the AI world continues.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, Jeff, I think we should take Ralph's question first before we get going, because I think this is really good to kind of define what a community is, right? Because we say that and we think maybe it's thousands and thousands of people, right? But Ralph asked, so before you even get started, how many he downloads, he has a daily podcast that he's doing. Do I really need to consider starting a community? So he's basically saying, how many people have to know of me or know of the content that I create before I can even start with going down the route of building a community?
It's such an interesting question because I don't think it has anything to do with downloads. And podcasters can argue and disagree. I don't think it has any. You can start it without downloads, without a podcast. If you have a message and something that you want to create and you have relationships of people that want to be a part of what you do, you can start a community. And a community doesn't have to be large. It could be 10 people to start. It does not have to be big. The first thing I ever did close to 10 years ago was a mastermind. And there were, of the first 6 people that I offered it to, 5 of them joined and paid. And there was no podcast and there was nothing like that. I was writing my first book, and that built out to where once that grew and sold out, and then we had multiple ones, we had people from connections and other communities saying, hey, can't really afford the mastermind, but if you started something with a lower price with maybe less access or less, I'd be in it. And okay. And I'll explain this later in terms of a theory that we have in building this out. It all built from there. So I think content creators, Ralph, I'm not looking to disagree, but I think they get this wrong in terms of your podcast or your email list. If you don't have engagement, if you don't have personal connection, it's really hard to build it. Because I'll give you an example. We had somebody that joined our community because they were frustrated. They had 48,000 people on their email list, 48,000, a little more than that. And they did a launch, right? The way everybody tells you to do a launch. And they got less than 15 people to join their membership out of 48,000. So we kind of advised and coached, and like we're talking about here. And then they did what we do, which are more real personal connections, real conversations, learning, market research. Tell me what makes sense, what does personal. They had 30 conversations online and in person, and they booked more people into their membership than they did with a 48,000 person list of the email launch sequence. Right?
Yeah.
So they didn't need the numbers. They need the trust and the relationships. And I think as we talk about, the more this grows, the more podcasts there are, the more AI podcasts there are, the more newsletters there are, it becomes a lot of noise. And it comes down to the trust and the relationship.
That's really interesting because we have a great question here, because this flows in right to the Connor's next question that he's going to take is what are the best platforms to build these communities on? Like right now, he's Tech Troublemaker is building his on YouTube, but he's created a small group that does Zoom meetings. So does the platform really matter, or is it more the way you network and you build those relationships that you have?
I love these questions because my answers are always the opposite of what everybody thinks it is. Right? I'm the Seinfeld. I'm the Seinfeld of this online world, like the opposite, like do the opposite. Because this is the question everybody says right away. They go, what platform? Do I use Kajabi? Do I use Kartra? Is it YouTube? And it matters, but it doesn't matter because people spend so much time on that. I'll give an example. And now you're talking YouTube, but I'll give an example of Kajabi, which is I've talked to people that they've been taught right away, sign up for Kajabi because there's a great affiliate link, right? We could talk about that, right? And now they spend 3 to 4 months learning Kajabi, which is not easy to learn right up front. You're spending $200 a month or whatever it is, and you're spending all this time on the platform. Let me tell you this. In all my years of running memberships, not one person has ever said, your platform's not good enough. Like there's not enough bells and whistles in it. There's too much stuff already that for people to think about. And the number one reason why people leave memberships, and nobody understands this or thinks about it, the number one reason why people leave is overwhelm. It's too much information. And so they're trying to build something out with 12 months worth of content. The people joining just need help and connection. And we, like I say to everybody, you can start any community if you have the right people with a Facebook group and a Zoom link. You can start that tomorrow if you have people that want to be a part of a community. The questions when it comes to community, it's ironic, are never really about community. It's about tech. It's about the platform. It's about all this stuff. As a community is a group of people, right? Any community. And that's the number one thing that's overlooked. The people with the relationships will build the community. It's so those first two questions are what I hear almost all the time. And I always go the opposite of what everybody thinks.
Which I think, we mentioned before, like Connor and Paul, who's in the audience, is also in this mastermind that he and I run together. And that all formed very organically from, conferences that we've gone to, conversations that's happened. We're like, hey, this would be great. Why don't we just do this once a week? Kind of a thing that we all come together. Very organic, really, really cool. And masterminds for me has what's boosted my business more than anything. So I think you're spot on that. It really doesn't matter what platform. It matters of the people and how you continue building those relationships inside it once you form it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's a big, I call it like the field of dreams syndrome, right? Which I feel like we did back in the day when social media was first starting. It's like, I built it. Why aren't they here? Why aren't they showing up? And we focus too much on the what and not enough on why or how are they going to join. And Vincent, you talked a lot about how, you're not an AI guy, but so much of social now, which is kind of the top funnel for many people when we think of putting them into a membership or bringing them on board to a community, is being created through social media content with the help of AI. And it's just becoming oversaturated. It's not standing out. So when people say, why aren't people signing up for things? It's like, well, how are you differentiating yourself? How are you going out of your way? You talk a lot about how it's still built on human to human interactions when it comes to that community building. What are some for you some rituals or systems that you're doubling down on when it comes to, making those communities as personable as possible? Like,
Yeah.
how do you just go about that?
Well, a couple of things. I think figuring out how to be yourself is key. If you look at the cover of my second book, The Wealth of Connection, it says non-best-selling author
Right. I love that. Yeah, that was
on the
great.
cover.
Yeah.
I'm the only one because everybody else is a best-selling author. Everybody else did the Amazon thing. They hired somebody, whatever it is. Everybody's a best-selling author. Be yourself. All of my content I write. And so it's ironic how such a simple catchphrase of, if my name's on it, I wrote it, can stand out in a world where most people can't say that anymore. Whereas 10 years ago, everybody had to write anything that was their content, right? So that attracts a lot of people that like me or also dislike me. I have no problem repelling people. I did a social media post today that will repel people. I have no problem with that if I'm repelling the right people. So in terms of community, you want the right people in and keep the wrong people out. So we have a thing on our, if you go to our website, you can't just sign up. You have to apply. Because if my brother-in-law can sign up to it, I don't want to run the community.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
And his friends. And then they're
Right.
think about a neighborhood. If anybody can come in, what happens to the neighborhood? Kind of goes to crap, right? It kind of does. You have to vet it. So I'm not saying everybody has to do this, but for me, we do, right? I have to know. So even with our event that we do, the Unconference, you can't buy a ticket before we have a conversation. Because I've had conversations with people about that and our community where it's 50 minutes of them just talking about themselves and not asking any questions. Well, guess what? Curiosity is a big part of developing relationships and community. If you don't have any questions about me or what we're doing and you just there's no invite there.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't want to do that because it suppresses revenue. Long-term revenue, it's amazing for. Short-term, it's hard because you want money. I always think in terms of the future. Everything I do daily is for the future. It's for 3 years from now. And we've built a life that I don't have to worry about the money now. But I want to build something strong. So in terms of your question, how do we keep that in community? Well, I have a thing where, I wrote about my book. It's called The Hour of Giving, where I spend essentially the first hour of every day and sometimes multiple hours just reaching out to people personally. First are, the coaching clients that I have, and then are the people in our community, our membership, because members come first. If you follow Jesse Cole in terms of the Savannah Bananas, his book is called Fans First, which I love. Great book. Totally recommend it. We have a members first philosophy. If you're a part of our community, you're the first people we think about. You're the people we're going to refer people to. You're the people we're going to connect together. You're a part of it, right? And then on down the line, I'll reach out to friends, families, acquaintances. I'll send thank yous. I'll send encouragement. And that's how I spend the first hour of my day. That 1 hour is what's built everything we've ever done. So if you're a part of a community and you get, a message out of nowhere from the leader of the community, or you get a connection or a shout out, I can tell you I've left communities simply because I've never heard from the people that run it. And I would have stayed if I would have just gotten one message a year that was personal.
Yeah.
Right? So our engagement is high and our turnover is incredibly low simply because we care about the people. And it doesn't mean we spend 40 hours a week going nuts on it. It doesn't require that much to care. So that's the first thing we do, but it's a cornerstone of what we do because they're the people that allow me to live the life that I get to live. And by honoring them and over delivering for them, guess what also happens? Not only they stay, but they tell their friends. And if you want to build a business that is going to thrive, you want people that stay and then tell their friends. It's more complicated, but it's not that much more complicated than that.
Yeah, Jeff,
So-
quick shout out. Jesse Cole, Savannah Bananas.
Yeah.
He was just on 60 Minutes. They did a whole thing on it. I watched it after I was watching Rory McIlroy win the Masters, and I was
watched that.
wiping away my tears as he won. I went right into that. It's a great 11-minute thing. You can look it up on YouTube now. Definitely go and check that out after the show is over.
So the funny thing about Jesse Cole is I remember way back when I first started going to social media marketing world, he would walk around and I was like, who's this weird guy in this yellow suit? Because it wasn't big then. It wasn't, It was very, very small and he was trying to get off the ground. And you saw how he continued to activate fans and everything. And also, Vincent, I want to give you a shout out because I have actually been the recipient of your, the first hour, because you contact me. And one of the things that stands out with Vincent, it's never just a quick message like, hey, just want to drop a line. It's actually a voice message where he's talking to you. And then, most every time I'll respond back with a voicemail. And so there's that relationship that gets built just for that little extra step that you've done on a voice message, which most people don't do. And it's not that hard.
It's not that hard, and there's no expectations. That's the other thing.
Right.
People are like, how do I get more clients? I'm like, start a year ago. Really, you can't, but like think about next year. The best thing you can do if you want to start a community, honestly, is not worry about your community for a year. And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody's going to do it. But the honest best advice is if you connect with your network and beyond for the next year, if you're doing this, you're reaching out to new people, you're making new connections, you're connecting people together, you're creating content, even if you don't even know what your niche is, but you're getting awareness of what you're doing. And then a year from now, you go, hey, I'm starting something. I can guarantee you people are going to be interested. People are going to sign. But people generally do it when they need it. And now they have to push it. And if I could tell a real funny, embarrassing Jesse Cole story, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
2016, 2017, I was in Dan Miller's mastermind.
Oh, yeah.
And Jesse, amazing man. Who's such a mentor to me.
Yeah.
Jesse was a guest in the mastermind at one point. And I didn't get it. Just like you saw him in the hallways, kind of like, well, who's this guy with the yellow tux? And he was talking about it. And I was very cynical, which I can be, right? New York Italians can be that way sometimes. and so everybody's all fawning over him. And I was like, what are you going to do when the yellow tux shtick runs out? Like, what are you going to do? He goes, I'm going to keep going. He was really calm about it. I believe in it. I'm going to keep going. I remember thinking, yeah, whatever. Okay. I didn't buy it at all.
Yeah.
To the point where about a half an hour later, after everybody was still kind of oohing and eyeing, I was like, raise my hand again. I'm like, no, really. I did this. I was like, really, what are you going to do? Like, this is going to die out. It's a fad. And I could see the other guys in the mastermind like, will you shut up? Like, now I'm being annoying with it.
Right.
And he was like, no. And he gave me kind of the and I was okay. And so the funny thing is we both spoke at an event last year in Georgia and got to see him again. And I was like, I don't know if you're, and he laughed. He goes, I didn't take any offense by it. But the funny thing is, Jesse was the keynote speaker, probably making about 50 grand from that speech.
Right.
I was one of the breakout speakers making nothing.
Yeah.
Who won? He won.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So embarrassing story that
That's funny.
I love to tell now because I didn't understand, and he had a vision. And just like everybody starting, people are not going to believe in you. But if you keep going with what you believe in, that's what happens.
Yeah, and never judge somebody, because I have gotten burnt by that before. A similar story is I did it was at like Podcast Movement or Podfest, and I was on a panel, and it was great. I had Lou Mangello on there and all this stuff. He was getting inducted to the Podcasting Hall of Fame. And so this guy comes up to me, and there was a thing I said about asking questions and writing them out before a show, and a lot of people didn't agree with me. He did. And I'm like, yeah, what I do is da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like giving him this guy advice. Turns out he was another recipient of the Podcast Hall of Fame. I mean, he'd been podcasting forever, and I'm just like, oh gosh, I'm such a goof. So you learn from those things, we chalk it up. Yeah, you're just like, okay, I just never judge anybody ever again.
I just like to say bad choices make great stories.
Yeah.
And that was a bad choice of mine that just made a great story.
And learning opportunity. I really want to. We got some great comments already from our community, which is I love this. I love Fridays because we have so many good people showing up. Paul Gowder, who actually does the mastermind with me, he it's really small, but he says you should start a community first from the beginning, which I totally agree with. And Paul's actually built his community via email, so he's done a really great job, and they're very active. But we have a question from Paul on this line about. You mentioned before, the 1 year kind of roadmap. You remind entrepreneurs that it takes a year to kind of lay that 4 foundations, which is character, curiosity, connection, and collaboration before like really going all in. But Ralph wants to ask, he goes, I agree. I'm thinking about starting a paid mastermind where I offer small business coaching. What would you suggest are the best steps to getting that started? So Ralph doesn't need to do it right away. He's not, he's doing fine as his business. And you mentioned this kind of year plan. So what is his next steps when he's thinking about it? He's ready to kind of bite the bullet. Yeah,
for me, it comes down to market research, which so many entrepreneurs don't want to do. Like I'll say it this way, Paul. Like my greatest fear in business is public humiliation. I don't know about you, but it's mine. Where, that social media post that goes out that, hey, I'm starting a mastermind. Who wants to join? And then my mom comments and goes, congratulations, sweetie. And my aunt gives a thumbs up, and
Yeah.
2 other people are like, I was in a mastermind once and it was awful. And then you go, where? And then there's 5 comments and nobody cares. And then everybody watching goes, well, that doesn't look like it's any good, right? What I do is tons of market research beforehand, always. And I give the example of a supermarket that opened up across the street from us. And I watched it. I was just think of it this way in terms of business. It was just land. It was just dirt. And as we moved in, we're watching it grow. And I'm like, the day it opened, my kids wanted to be the first ones in the store. They wanted to say they were the first ones. So we got up at like 6:30. We got there. And as the door opened, like Nolan cut in and got his elbow in front and was the first one to ever go into the pub. We had the video. We did a slow motion replay on social media. It was hysterical. He got his elbow across the line first and he won. But when I went inside, the thing I thought about was, and I have a meaning for the story, was I looked around like there's tens of thousands of dollars worth of perishable items in this store that if they don't sell it, it's going to go bad. And they're not going to stay in business. How did they know? How did they know that when they open those doors, because this is real, this is not like, oh, I get a couple people into a group, and they knew because they did a ton of market research. They researched the neighborhood. They saw the street, the traffic, the income of the area. And when they opened, they thrived right away. That's what I do. I have, and this is just me, I have 100 conversations before I launch anything. The unconference was the same. The membership was the same. A mastermind, I wouldn't do that many. I wouldn't need that many. But I want to know what the problems are. I want to know how interesting it sounds. I want to know the disagreements. I want them to shoot holes in my theory. Why? Because when they go, well, that doesn't make sense, or it sounds good, but I couldn't make the time of it. Well, when okay, well, we have replays, or we do this, or we do that. When you know every objection, and you can even put it into your copy on your website, your landing page, your social media. When you can tell their objection before they could say it to you, they go, this person's thinking quicker than I am. I might want to be around them. So every single time we do it, we do a good amount of market research. Our membership too. I did 100 market research calls to find out. All of our copy on our site came from those conversations. Didn't come from this. It came from the conversations. 60 of the people that I did market research calls with to not sell them anything, to just get information, wind up joining the membership without a pitch. They wound up saying to me, hey, okay, that sounds really good. Can I join that? I'm like, yeah, sure. This is not the purpose of this, because that will come later for me. But the amount of people that want to just start without doing market, like I'm sorry, who's the question by? Was that, who asked that question?
This is Ralph. Yeah, Ralph.
Ralph. I would line up 20 people or 25 people that you're thinking could be really good fits. And I would have a conversation with them about what you're doing, what they need, what their struggles are, answer their questions, show them that you're a good coach before they even pay you a dime. Because when I got on those calls, I would coach for 20 minutes. I would ask them questions. I would solve problems. Interesting story. One of the guys, I reached out to him like, hey, asking how it's going. And he goes, yeah, it's funny because I'm everything's going good, but I'm struggling. I have a lot of service-based income, but I have no recurring revenue. This is what he said to me. Without even knowing what we were talking about, I have no recurring revenue. I need to find a way to do that. And I gave some tips. And then I said, so the reason why I was asking for the conversation, I want to get your feedback on something we're building. And it's membership freedom, about recurring revenue. He's like, here's my credit card. Here, we weren't even done, because the market research and the coaching beforehand and the conversations led to the trust. So that's where I would go. The bigger it is, the more I would do. But market research in personal, and I don't mean a survey on social media. I don't mean a survey to your email list. I mean real conversation. It's the number one thing, but people avoid it because it just seems like it's too much. But it's our secret sauce, is why people go, how's everything work? Because we do that foundational work beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should get this question from Tech Troublemaker, because I think it goes into a lot of stuff. And he asks, how do you ensure you are giving value? It almost feels like I am charging my friends to join, kind of like mom commenting, I'm so proud of you, or aunt giving you a thumbs up. And then he usually gives his super fans free memberships, which is interesting. But what do you say to that? How do you lead with value and ensure that it's not just, your friends that are signing up that are you're charging them for, essentially.
Yeah. Which I think a lot of people struggle with. And I did it for a while too, in terms of like, are you paying to be my friend?
Yeah.
Like it, right. And that's, I think there's an imposter syndrome that comes with it in the beginning with that, which is absolutely accurate. And people feel it. The more that you develop the roadmap that you're going to bring people on, meaning like one of the best memberships ever, I'll give you an example, was my son in Taekwondo and karate. And so I'm a membership teacher, right? And I'm not seeing what's happening as he's going from white belt to, the later belts, the red belt. And one day I said to his sensei, I'm like, oh, so you got me. And he goes, what do you mean? I laughed. I said, and he laughed at it. I said, your roadmap, I can't cancel. I can't quit. Like,
right.
There is a path that you're taking him on. And the best line ever, once you become a black belt, now you're a beginner. One of the best sales lines ever. You're going to pay all those months to get to black belt, and now you're just starting, right? I didn't think it was manipulative at all. It was true. Now you're going to go to second degree. To have a forever challenge for your people to get to will make you feel like you're not just charging friends, right? It will not make you feel like, hey, what value am I bringing? We have a roadmap. And so I'm a sports guy. I was a sports photographer for 20 something years. We teach something called the stadium. It's my next book. Sports has the greatest business model that nobody talks about.
Yep.
It is one game in one stadium that has multiple tiers of income all around the same game. They're not doing multiple businesses, but anything they do, they give content away for free. You can listen to the game on the radio or television or watch on TV. But if you want to have access to them, you need to pay to get into the stadium, right? Now, you can buy cheap seats, but they also have luxury box and everything in between. And they have a concourse for products, right? It's not a funnel. They're not funneling you from the $7 seats to the $3,000 VIP things. You go where you belong, right? What an amazing business model, right? That we do it. So that's what we do. We create tons of content that attracts the right people. We have those, and we have levels for them to join. But that it's a business model that has. So when we teach people that, where you can build a stadium with multiple full-time income streams within it around one idea, guess what? Almost every one of them says, "I'm not even close to that. I need to learn this so I can get there." It's the same thing as the black belt. You have to have a path that you're taking them on, as opposed to it's just a bunch of friends hanging out talking about business. Because that's what people don't talk about is, yeah, I got 53 people into my membership. What they don't talk about is 3 months later, 33 of them have left.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Retention, not just retention for you, but success for them. Because the more success they have, the more they're going to tell people about what you're doing, which brings more people on. So I think, to the question, what's the path that you're taking them on? Like and that's where the market research comes in. When hey, we're starting here, but here's where we're going. And here's steps to go. And we're going to teach along that way. People really appreciate the guidance for that.
Yeah. It's really interesting that how you started it. That's what like Paul and I started, because we were like, okay, we do this mastermind, but we want to teach people the things that we wish we would have done when we first started. And so that's kind of been our path throughout the whole process, is like, man, I wish I would have done this earlier, and let us help you do that to get a jump start on your trajectory. 100%. So yeah, very, very cool.
I kind of want to go back to the importance of retention, right? And it's one thing to build something and welcome people in, but if it's a recurring revenue year after, then you have to ensure that they're going to stick around to give you the recurring payment. There's two things to that. I think there's one, giving them enough value, like you said, Vincent, to where they're succeeding and they're telling other people and they're staying in the group. But then there's also this thing of, I'm joining a community, I'm joining a membership because I want to be around other people in this situation. Yep. I think we often look at these communities and we see the bigger the better, right? If there's 10,000 people, that must mean it's really, really good. When oftentimes it means you're entering a big ocean and you're a small fish, and it's hard to make an impact, or it's hard to be heard.
Yeah.
Loneliness inside large groups, I think, is a real concern about people leaving too, right? Yes. They just feel like, well, what's the point? What am I paying for? I'm just an observer here, right? I'm not getting anything.
They don't feel heard. They don't feel heard.
So So what are some ways to prevent that from happening, to prevent members in your group from drifting into this connected loneliness sort of thing?
Well, I think as a leader, to not worry about going big.
Mm.
And that's, again, the opposite of what everybody's going to tell you. Um, I'll give you the story. Like, I'll ask people, what's an amount of money that if you had recurring revenue every month, predictable, that would make you feel free? Meaning your bills are paid and there's 25% extra, right? Your lifestyle's paid and there's 20. And generally people say the bills and expenses are around 6-7 grand. So if it's 10 grand a month, the extra, I'd feel great. And now it doesn't take that much time and you can build other stuff on top of it, build other levels. Well, last time I did math, and I've never been a math major, 100 people at $100 is $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right? Is that a giant, huge community? No, not at all. But it gets your basic income needs covered if you don't have huge expenses. And now you can create a mastermind off of that if you want. You can create a live event off. We have tiers now. We have a content level that you're not even in the community. You could just watch the replays of the calls, right? Then we have a community level. Then we have a community plus level that comes with voice coaching with me. And then we have levels of that. And then we have the live. It's all built around that one group with 170 something members that I do one call a week with. And I have zero interest in making it a 10,000 person group. Yeah. Because like you said, Connor, it would lose so much of that. What I would rather do is create levels that help people in different ways, because not everybody wants that. And we've all been in those large groups and we're like, I don't want I've heard this said a million times. If I would cancel if they didn't know that I was going to cancel. Like, they like the person, but they're like, I would get out of it if they didn't know that I would. Like, you don't want to be in that spot. And that's kind of what happens. So people just kind of linger around. I wouldn't worry about the size of it. I would worry about, as Seth Godin would say, do the best you can for the smallest amount possible. And it gets rid of all this. What kills people is there's a trend of, I want to help 1 million people. Everybody says that. I don't care about helping 1 million people. I want to help these 100 people. Right. I want to help these 200 because I know them. And I know what their problems are. And I think the online world, we've went from 20 years ago where nobody made money doing this to where we're following billionaires and we need to follow billionaire strategies. And they wouldn't build it this way in the start. Right. They all talk about all this stuff you got to do. And then all of a sudden I'll ask them, what would you do in the very beginning? How did you start? Oh, door to door, knocking on doors, helping one person. Like, then don't advise them to do something you've done when you have affiliate relationships with other multimillionaires that could just promote your product. It's not the same world, and a lot of them are being fooled.
Yeah, I totally agree, because it's even if they give you strategies on, like, let's say a YouTuber is like, this is how I got my silver play button. Well, they've been doing it for 5 years, and YouTube has changed in 5 years, right? Like, it's different. It's different than what it is. So you can get some best practices, and I'm not saying those guys are trying to deceive you. There's some best practices you can do, but it's not the same thing. And so everybody's path is different. And I love what you're saying, Vincent, because I'm all on board about this. One thing I forgot to do, because I was so excited Vincent was here at the very beginning, is I didn't mention our sponsor, Ecamm. We talked about great communities. They have an amazing community over on Facebook and on Discord. I was a big fan even before they sponsored the show, but I'm very appreciative that they sponsored this. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. Use code Jeff15. You'll save 15% on your first purchase. But once again, even if you don't go to ecamm.com/Jeff, go there and check out the community, because they're so awesome. Katie, Doc Rock, all the team over there is an awesome, and that's what we're using to produce this show with. So thank you for them for their support. Really quickly, I want to go into building. We've talked kind of around it a little bit, and you mentioned it, but this is, I think, what changed my whole business model and helped me become more successful, is building multiple income streams, and especially for you around this membership. So you talk about the indispensable entrepreneur, and on your blog you say diverse income streams give creators fluidity and options. So how do you decide? And you mentioned these parallel offers, your courses, coaching, live events, etc. How do they complement membership without cannibalizing it? Like, you're not pulling people from the wrong spot or before they're ready, all that kind of stuff. So what do you say about that, Vincent? Well,
what I've learned is when you have an idea of what you're doing and how you're leading, and you have the type of person you're talking to, not everybody wants the same thing. And this is what we deal with people that are building their membership. They're like, oh, they're not interested in that. And I get it. Not everybody wants a community. I love it, right? But there's sometimes like I want something a little quicker. Sometimes I need more access, right? Sometimes I don't have time to get on a call, but I would consume the content. But the problem is people will try to build different businesses about all those different things, different brands. And it's like you work in the sports analogy, it's having little fields all over the place. You got to go 10 to that field. Then you got to go drive, 4 hours to that field and 10. And there's all these little audiences. My whole thing is take one idea that you are really good at, that you like to talk about, and then build a level to it. It could be community. It could be coaching. A lot of memberships start with coaching. They do. They start with one-on-one coaching that you get so good at that you go, I keep answering the same question for 10 people or for 20 people.
Right.
And then you go, and this would start with us. We were coaching photography. That's how we started the business of photography. And I was doing one-to-one. And then it was a 6 o'clock call and the person canceled last second. And I missed dinner with my kids. And I'm like, kind of like, this is stressing me out. It's overwhelming. And then I got too many people and I was making good money, but my schedule was awful.
Right.
And then I realized I keep answering the same questions. What if I put 20 people into a group where I could answer their questions in there? They pay less money, but I get recurring revenue. And then all of a sudden my 20 to 30 hours a week went to 1 to 2 hours a week.
Yeah.
What it allows you to do is now you have this base level for community, but now your coaching becomes more valuable, right? Coming down the field to levels. Okay, if you want access here, now it's not my only price option. I'm making good money with the community. I can now charge a higher price for access to me or a lower price to content access that you don't get with the community. And then once you start building from there. So I just been studying this like crazy, the sports part. I'm a Mets fan, right? I'm a long-suffering New York Mets fan. What I learned was when the Mets started in 1962, they had 2 ticket prices. What else were they going to do? It was $3.50 or $2.50. That's all it was. They didn't have any complexity to their business. The New York Mets, as of 2 years ago, had 54 different ticket options around the same game because they realized some people want to sit in the upper level in the shade with all-you-can-eat hot dogs, and some people don't want that. The more you build, the more you realize certain people want different things, and it doesn't mean you're starting a whole new business. It means you're just creating a different level of access. So even with our 5 levels, it still only takes me a couple hours a week because anything I do helps everything I do. And this is where I think everybody gets this wrong. Like if I have a conversation with somebody and I go on a podcast, people can just start consuming my free content and never buy anything because they don't trust me yet. The reason why people don't buy from you is generally they don't trust you yet. And it's just the truth. They're not ready to believe that you're the one that has the answer. So they can follow along on my free content just like a team, just like a fan would listening to a game on the radio for 2 years. Then they hear him win the championship and they go, that sounds pretty cool. I want to go to a game. Okay, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of money, so I'll buy the cheap seats. Oh, but then down below, they're catching foul balls. Ooh, that's kind of cool. It's a little bit more money. Oh, even below that, they're getting autographs. Oh, over there, they're in the luxury box talking to business owners and making deals while they're... You realize you build it all out. So that was the whole idea for us is like take one idea, become the best that we can be at it, and then create levels from that, as opposed to starting 5 or 6 different types of business for different multiple income streams. I want multiple income streams around one idea.
Awesome. That's gold.
So interesting. And I think for people starting out, you said it best, Vincent, when you're like, they're unsure. They're not willing to buy from you right from the get. They have to understand who you are and what you're about and what you provide. For someone just starting from scratch, when it comes to these layers, right, and sequencing them out, do you recommend starting in a certain place and working backwards? I would think, the easiest thing that you might think is, let's just start with the lowest price point, right, and then scale up from there. But I also might think, well, maybe what if you started in the middle and then said, oh, by the way, we also have this cheaper option. Or you start at the very top and say, we also have two down below. So someone who hasn't built out any of this, is there a right or wrong spot to start in when it comes to offering these levels?
Well, I'm certainly not a lawyer, but I'm going to act like one for a minute. And I'm going to give you a lawyerly answer, which is, it depends. That's what every lawyer will tell you in every situation. It really depends. I started with a mastermind, which was a little bit higher priced, and then built lower tiers from it and then higher tiers above it over time. We have some people that start with a very low price membership because they want momentum and people aren't willing to pay. If you know Liz Wilcox, she hasn't even deviated. She's got 4,500 people in a $9 membership. And I don't think she has any interest in building a stadium. She's got one level. I saw her last week at an event. She gave the best line, which doesn't fit along with what we teach. But it was funny. She said she understood the recurring revenue model, the membership model. And she said, what can I give for $9 that you give me $9? I give you something great. And then you just get the F away from me. That's the way she said it.
Right.
And it was hysterical.
Yeah.
Because that was her way of doing it. But what did she have? She had the recurring revenue that gave her the freedom. The answer is it depends. The worst thing I can do is say this is the way you should. Jeff's life is different than Connor's life, which is different than my life, and your experience and your connections are different. You might have a lot of people in a high-end space that would be willing to pay you $1,000 a month for a mastermind. You might, but they wouldn't join a $50 membership because it just doesn't seem like it would be valuable. But you might have 300 people that would pay $50 a month to have access to your community, or even 30, whatever it is. And then you teach it out where the more access they get to you, you can create levels higher. Mm-hmm. So the answer is it depends. There's a lot of great conversations around it and a lot of great successes, but it just depends.
Yeah. Liz is great. And she does have an amazing model. I've known Liz forever. And she's still rocking it. I want to talk a little bit really this is flying by, Vincent. You're dropping so many great ideas and knowledge here. But you mentioned in your book collaborative monetization, which I really love. I'm a big fan of working with people. Like Paul and I have this mastermind, but you say it's like the ultimate multiplier. Can you maybe share a recent example where partnering with another creator unlocked a whole new, brand new revenue stream for both of you, or maybe somebody in your membership that this story? I'd love to have like a real tactical, practical example.
Can I give you how it started for me?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So when it started for me, I was just so you know, this is where relationships come in. And I'm not always a fan of partnerships. I'll be honest. Like my dad had a partnership and almost ruined our life when they walked away with $135,000 when I was 15 years old, right? It's the Dave Ramsey line. The only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership, right? And
right.
So I'm not talking partnerships, but I'm talking collaborations. And when I first started, this is where the network comes in. I was in a mastermind, and I was a photographer, and I had no online income streams at all. This was about 10 years ago. But we're very successful with our business, so we've been doing it for a while. But I wanted to get into this space 10 or 11 years ago. And I joined a mastermind. We had a live event. There was a guy there named Kyle Schultz. And we all kind of introduced ourselves. And he explained that he has a thing called he has a photo school. And it's a membership. And it's $12 a month or $10 a month. He's got 1,000 members in. And I was like, what? Like, is that what? Like he gets on for one call a week. And he's making $10, $12, $14,000 a month in recurring revenue. And if 8 people leave, he just does something else and gets 14 people back into it. And I'm like, I got to know this guy, right? Not knowing that he went to meet me. And I didn't know this because I was a sports photographer for 20 years and shooting the Stanley Cup and the World Series and the Super Bowl. And I had just done Muhammad Ali's birthday party in Arizona. Wow. And we got flown out there for that. And so he gives his thing. I give mine. I turn to him. Boldness is another part of business that you got to do, and you got to make the introductions. And I looked at him and I said, I have an idea. Those were the first words I ever said to him. I have an idea. And he said, yes. And I was like, you don't even know what I'm going to say. And he said, go ahead and tell me. Now, other people are now listening to this. And I said, you've got, Schultz Photo School, and you teach parents how to take better pictures of their kids. That's what his membership was. Right? Because the parents are not going to spend $100 a month on that membership, but they'll spend 10. It's kind of a hobby thing. Mm-hmm. So I said, you and I should, because he did courses as well. And he was just in the book Story Brand by Donald Miller. He was an example of success story. He had a 3-day launch that made $103,000 or whatever it was. And I said, you and I should combine and do a course for your students on how to take better sports photos of their kids, which is different than regular photos. Right. Now, Kyle was not a sports photographer. He saw me shooting everything and traveling the country doing it. So that's why he said yes. He goes, I was already thinking that. So it turns out that he actually went to that. He wasn't going to go to that retreat. He went because he wanted to meet me, which I had no idea. So we collaborated and we went and we wrote a course, which I knew nothing about. And I had no audience. Here's the other thing. I had zero audience, no online, anything. He had the audience. I had the skill set. We combined. He interviewed me. We wrote out the course. We put that course out. The course made more money in the first day than I made in a full year as a newspaper sports photographer. And then doubled that with it by the end of the week. And then I realized like these relate, like, look how fast it sped up my journey. And then because of that, that's how I met Dan Miller. That's how I really connected with Dan Miller. He loved that story so much. He would talk about me on his podcast all the time, which led to 10 other people hearing about me because of that. And then the boldness of it, like, you got to ask when you build relationships. Seth Godin was one of those that I loved Seth Godin. And I went to one of his live events and I introduced myself and formed a relationship. I paid the money to get in, right? And then I finally reached out to get his endorsement on my first book and another collaboration. That was a big ask because he doesn't really, it was hard to get an endorsement. Well, the funny thing is, I reached out to a few other people about endorsements. John Miller from QBQ is one of them. And John calls me and he goes, Vince, this book's 220 pages. Nobody's ever going to read it. I can't endorse it. And I said, well, Seth Godin just endorsed it. And he goes, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Right? You get Seth, you get John, you got John Rulin, I got John Lee. And all of a sudden, because of those collaborative relationships, I'm being interviewed on all these podcasts. Same book. It was the same exact book before all those endorsements that people were like, but having those collaborations and those relationships that were built, there was one guy that led a huge mastermind that I reached out to him like Hour of Giving and he never got back to me. And then literally I posted about Seth and he goes, how in the world did you get Seth to endorse your book? He goes, will you come speak to my mastermind? And I was like, yeah, now you want to talk. Now you like me because of that. Exactly. That's what happens in this world. Yeah. Not that it's great, but that's how those collaborations happen.
So often we build a membership because we believe we have expertise that no one else has and that we can share it and teach and foster community and help people learn from what we know, right?
Yeah.
You talk a lot, Vincent, about exit-ready memberships, though. Not just, building something that is only being successful because of you and people gravitating towards you, but something that's being built that eventually you could sell if you would ever want to do that. For you, what are the financial and the operational things that make a membership truly sellable versus it just being an owner dependent? The only way this is going to work is if this owner stays on forever.
There's really good and there's really bad when it comes to it. Meaning memberships and recurring revenue are one of the most sellable businesses you can get. If you read the book Built to Sell, they'll go through it like, oh my goodness, the recurring like when there's recurring revenue models there, that's you think about, phone companies. I think they have the top one because their recurring revenue model is ironclad. It's once you sign up for it, you're in. It's a recurring revenue model, right? As are memberships. The problem with memberships, with selling them, is it's generally built around you. Almost everything we're talking about is personal. It's really difficult for me to sell my membership, even though that's a path that could be done because it's built around my vision, my relationships, and I would have to, if I'm going to do that, which I'm not, I love what I do. I'm not interested, but it's a model to do, but I would need to have a sales team that can close the way that I can close or anywhere near it for it to become even a sellable membership model. That's just the truth. And I thought I was going down that path, but I just love what I do. So I don't have a sellable membership at this moment.
Yep.
I just don't. It's just, I can make it that because all I would need to do is bring in the sale. Not all of it. It's not that easy, but I would have to bring in that sales team that would replicate what I'm able to do, which once we will start going down that path, I'm like, this feels like a job. I'm being honest. It felt like I wasn't doing the work that I like to be doing, and I like a freedom lifestyle, and I love the people we work with. So we've seen people make really successful exits from memberships, but they've shifted the path from it's, as we all know, it's personal in the beginning. It's really difficult, especially this day and age, to build it not that way. But you're going to have to make that shift. And the problem is with that, and I'm just pointing out the problems, I've seen people do this. They make that shift and all of a sudden it's not about them anymore. And people go, I joined because of him or her. And now he's not in charge anymore. And I don't even like the community anymore. Yeah. So there's a lot of, pitfalls in it. And it's something that is obviously a part of the business model, but it's something that we're not pursuing just because I just like the work that I do and I don't want to change that.
Yeah. I think a good example maybe of that is Jay Klaus, who Pat Flynn actually bought his from him, his network, and then Pat's taken it over and it's great. But then Jay has had his own one that I'm a part of that's really, really good. So I think if you want to look at a good model of somebody who's transitioned well, it's like Jay Klaus and Pat Flynn, that whole thing, how that worked together. I want to go now because, man, this is flying by. But I want to talk about your unconference, the unconference for entrepreneurs, which you and I talked about. You had the first one last year. And I think it's really cool because of the hallway track philosophy that you have in it. And you designed the unconference so the hallway, in quotes, is the conference. So what sparked that idea to remove like keynotes and sponsors, and how has that choice changed? And I know it was successful because you're doing another one coming up. So talk about that a little bit.
It was sparked by anger. It's the best way I could say it. It was sparked by going to these events and meeting all these people like you guys, right? And we haven't met in person, but it's amazing that we haven't yet. But COVID really threw a monkey wrench into the live events for a couple of years. But going to these events, meeting the most incredible people in the world, people that became close friends, people that I was closer to than people in my own neighborhood because we had so much more in common. But yet being pulled to speaker after speaker, after breakout, after keynote, after this, after that, and then, oh, by the way, networking connection's important. So go to the bar tonight at 11 o'clock with the DJ blasting loud music and talk to people.
Yeah, I hate it.
Like, who the heck thought of that? Like, that's the dumbest idea in the world. What's your name? Like, I went to one a couple weeks ago, and the next morning I called my wife, and she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "You sick?" I'm like, "No, I was at the VIP thing for 2 hours, and I was screaming in people's ears because we couldn't hear each other, and now I don't have a voice anymore." Like, who comes up with this? So I would go to these events, and I just always talk about an unconference, and they're like, "What's that?" Like, it's the opposite. Again, there's no keynotes. There's no speakers, there's no stages, there's no vendors, there's no upsells, there's no pitch men, there's no hype men. There's none of it. It is exactly what we do here in the hallways, but with structure to it and a plan to it. And every time I'd say it, people would be like, that's awesome. Because, anybody that's been to more than 2 of these events, they know the hallways are the most valuable place. I can listen. If I'm the speaker, you can listen to me on YouTube. You don't need to sit there and listen. And I'm not a student also. I'm not a traditional student. I was not diagnosed, but there's no doubt that I'm ADHD of some sort. Everybody thinks I have a bladder problem at these events. I keep getting up to leave.
That's great.
To go to the bathroom because I just want to talk to people in the hallways. You're making me go to an event with all these great people, and I got to sit for 2.5 days listening to speakers like I'm in school again. I'm like, to me, it's disrespectful to the audience, to me, right? And then there's a pitch that comes with it. So what if we just got rid of 90% of everything and then just brought the conversations and then facilitated, table talks or conversation starters, or spent your time introducing people that you need to meet with each other so that they can get the most valuable part, which is the relationships. And we created a program, because I'd never seen anybody do this before, that had every attendee with their pictures and a small bio and a link to their stuff. Because you leave these events and you have these business cards. Who was Dave? I forget. Was he at the bar that night, or was he in this? And you don't remember anybody. So you can leave and then methodically go through your program and connect with people. And then I saw the engagement from everybody there online increase because they're all now interacting with each other. Business relationships have formed in so many ways. Best story from it, though, Ken Carfagno and John Sanders, 2 guys in our membership, met there. They had not met before. Both of them, I don't even know if I should be telling the story, but it's too late. Both of them have kids in their early 20s that have a hard time meeting each other. One lives in Pennsylvania, one lives in North Dakota. They were like, they should talk to each other. His son and his daughter and blah, blah, blah. And so I go to visit Ken last week on my trip, and he's like, why don't you ask where Kenny is? I said, no. He goes, he's in South Dakota visiting. And I'm like, how cool would it be if a marriage came out of the unconference, then eventually a kid, like the first unconference kid came from the connection from within it. So I'm really rooting for them.
That's cool. That is a great story. I want to. So let's talk about the upcoming conference, because we're right at the end. Give us the dates if people are interested in, having an application, because that's the way you do it. How can they do that? What's the best way to find out more about that?
It's February 2nd through the 4th of 2026 at the Embassy Suites in downtown Sarasota, Florida. Because we saw, no offense, kind of like we saw all the events in Orlando, and I'm like, kind of also tired of Orlando events, right?
Oh, I get it.
Like everything. So we're like, Sarasota would be like right by the water. So it's next year. It's 2.5 days there, and so we have an application for people. I talk to everybody personally that applies and make the determination. And also, we want it to be where it's not, 100 life coaches. We like variety in terms of the businesses, right? There's and the variety of people coming for next year is already surpassing this year, which was great. So yeah, if anybody wants to, I'm happy to have a conversation. It's the most exciting thing I'm building right now, because that's the thing with the stadium is I would get all ADHD where I'm like, I would build something and I would get bored with it and I would kill it. Right. I don't know if anybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
It gets to the point where you think you're going to go blow it up and you go, I'm done. Right? I've done that so many times that the stadium for me, and this is the game changer, the walls of the stadium gives me a boundary to not leave.
That's a good point.
But the levels of the stadium gives me creativity, which is what I needed.
Yeah.
Meaning, okay, the membership's going great. Coaching's going good. I don't want more coaching clients. We can keep building the membership. When I get to that point, I get kind of bored. It's easy, to be quite honest, at that point. Now I need the next thing that I really can possibly fail at. And the next level. So that's where the unconference came. Okay, this could be bad. This could be great. But I need the adrenaline rush of trying something new. So I just keep. So the latest thing we're doing, and this is interesting to you guys, is being the stadium model. I travel around the country and I go to different games. I used to photograph in them all. I was at a game last week with a friend. And I was like, that's the next level we're going to create. Like, I can do a level where when I come to your town, we can go to a game together and I will be your coach for that night. You could ask me all the questions you want.
That's great. That's a good
We'll go to a
idea.
game together. So that's becoming my fantasy camp, my luxury box. It allows me the creativity to build the next thing off of the main thing.
I love that. That is so great. Well, Vincent, this has been a great. Wow, I can't wait to go back and chop this up, because there's going to be so many good golden nuggets out of this, because I know this is what people are needing. But really quick, I've been bringing it up all the time on screen, but it's mymembershipfreedom.com for you guys listening on the podcast. Mymembershipfreedom.com. It's Vincent. His last name is spelled Pugliese. Vincent, you got the floor right now. Before we wrap up, anything you want to say to all our viewers? The floor is yours.
I just want to say thank you for having me on. Like, this has been so much fun. I've seen you, from afar for a while. We've connected. I remember the first time I watched one of your shows, I think it was Lauren Gaggioli that was on.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
Lauren and I are friends. And so it's kind of like, it's just cool. I love this space where we get to do this and talk to your audience. And hopefully I'm adding value to them. Hopefully this is helpful to them. And honestly, and I mean this, if anybody wants to reach out, send me a message, send me a email. I believe the greatest thing you could do is have a one-on-one conversation. Truly believe in it. So that I build my schedule around that. So happy to chat with people. So.
Yeah, and Vincent, he practices what he preaches. He does a great job with that. Really quick, I want to give a shout out to my friend and co-host Connor Brown. Connor Brown, what is going on in your neck of the woods, and what you got for us?
So much going on. If you want to plan a trip to anywhere in the world, reach out to me, Connor, at vacationkingdoms.com, CONOR. Follow me on Instagram too, at Vacation Kingdoms. I just went to a brand new theme park. We were talking about this earlier on in the show. It was awesome. If you want to go to Epic Universe, let me know. Connor, CONOR, at vacationkingdoms.com. What an awesome episode. It's a good way to start a Good Friday.
That's right. And we've got great people. Like, Rich Graham says, what a great guest today. I could listen to Vincent read the phone book. Do they even have phone books anymore? I don't even know.
Don't tell that to my wife. My wife does not need to hear that. That will annoy her. She'll be like, yeah, don't make him talk any more than he has to.
And
Thanks,
our friend
Rich.
Ryan.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Ryan Cole stopped in. Thank you guys. Ralph, George, Jim was in here. Tech Troublemaker. Thank you for all your questions and for hanging out with us for this past hour. We wouldn't be able to do the show without you. And we wouldn't be able to do the show without our sponsors, Ecamm. To find out more about them, go to ecamm.com/Jeff. Save 15% on your first purchase by using the code Jeff15. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.